into the wild orange wander. So, welcome to the Sunday afternoon call, folks. I'm glad to see what a crowd. We've got 10 here today. Dietrich had a question about, and she used specifically the word compassion. Now, compassion is a word that is often used as a translation for the Pali word karuna. And karuna has connotations to it and points to it that the word compassion doesn't have. And so I've just admitted that I'm not a fan of the word compassion, but I'm actually talking about the English language word compassion that is oftenly a mistranslation for the Pali word karuna. Now, karuna is actually one of the Brahma Viharas of metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. And so we can kind of flesh out and build out the word karuna to include all four of the Brahma Viharas so that we can get a context. So, first off, let's take a knife to the word compassion and split it up. The word come is actually a prefix that comes out of the Latin, and it means with. And then the second part of the word, passion, is something that we can completely do without. So what compassion actually means is that you've got someone there that is in strife, in suffering, and having a problem, and you have compassion, which means that you are now joining their pity party. Misery loves company. Misery loves compassion. Now, let me give you a kind of an example of what I mean. Let us say that you're a guest on a very, very large fishing boat that's out at sea and rough water, and the fellow that's standing next to you wasn't holding on well, and he got washed overboard. Is your job to jump into the ocean with him? Would that be a good thing to do? How about right behind you on the wall, there is a life preserver with a rope. Wouldn't it be better to throw the guy a lifeline and let him grab hold of that while you pull him in rather than jumping in with him? So this is what I'm looking at with the word compassion, is that's the one who is jumping overboard to save someone in high seas. Both of you are stuck. That's especially true if you didn't bother to tell anybody else on board ship before you jumped overboard. Now, the important point is that he got swept overboard due to his own ignorance. You jumped overboard to save him out of stupidity. That was a pretty stupid thing to do. And yet, that's what happens often. And that there are places and times when that seems like the right thing to do. So let me make a clarification with that. And the example would be that the woman has just lost her daughter, her teenage daughter, and she is crying and wailing and sobbing and in great state of grief, and she's unconsolable. And then a father walks up to her, holds her arm, and says, I just lost my teenage son. And she begins to identify with him. In other words, he's got a similar loss, so he's going to fit into her grief package quite well. The point is that at what point is he in his recovery of his grief? Because if he's a wise, let us call him a Dhamma dude, it doesn't even matter whether he's lost a son or not. What he's doing is he's making a connection. That's the lifeline, is throwing them a connection that they can hold on to so that he can then pull her out of her grief. Maybe by starting with, that was a while ago, but I got over it and now I'm just fine. So, this is actually, now we're looking at one of the kind of technical issues that we can see in the suttas where the Buddha would do this. And that I call it a two-step operation. And this, we call this pacing and leading. Pacing means that we are throwing them a lifeline, not jumping in, but throwing them a lifeline, giving them something to hold on to. And then leading is the pulling them in. And the Buddha actually, you can see a number of suttas where he did this. But a lot of people who read these suttas get really, really confused that they think that he's being compassionate or jumping overboard with the person that he's talking to where in fact his intention is to get their attention, get their trust, gain their trust, so that he can move them out of the position that they're in into a better state. Now, one of the places that's this used, in fact, the most common place in the suttas that we find this is when they come to the Buddha and ask him questions, and he will answer in their belief system. That in fact, when he was a young man, he with a teenager in his teen years, he actually studied all of the Brahmin literature. He had a master teacher. That teacher actually has quite a story throughout all of the suttas. He was the one who, upon the Buddha's birth, Siddhartha's birth, all of the Brahmins would say, oh, he is going to be a world turning monarch, which means he's going to be a warrior. And this one guy, does anybody remember his name? I don't think that you, Mickey, maybe you remember. It's it started with a K, but anyway, he was the Buddha's teacher, and he taught him all of the Vedas, all of the Buddhist not Buddhist, but the topics of the Brahmins and all of the heavens and hells and all of that kind of stuff that the Brahmins believed in. So when he had Brahmins to come to talk to him, they would ask him Brahmin questions, and he would give them Brahmin answers to help gain their trust so that then he could move them into the Dhamma. Now, what that has in today's way of looking is that many people who really don't understand this process that the Buddha used, they think that he's agreeing with them. That because he knows the Brahmin literature so well, they think that he believes all of that stuff. To where, in fact, he was only using it in order for him to gain their trust so that he could move them out of it. So that, in fact, you could say that that's karuna in its best form, is taking the pacing, joining them in their sorrow just long enough to start moving them out of their sorrow. And so this is what we really mean by karuna. Don't jump in, don't jump overboard, but instead find a way of throwing a lifeline that the person will actually use. This is what we mean by karuna, which is completely different than compassion. Compassion is jumping overboard. The definition of the word, when you take it apart, with passion, That's the jumping overboard. So we're not actually going to be using the word compassion, but that's the word that we've gotten in English language kind of stuck with when we talk about the word karuna. All right. Now, karuna is basically also part of the Brahma Viharas in the sense of metta. And that metta actually is also badly translated when it's translated into loving kindness. Why? Because loving kindness has also that quality of jumping overboard, also. That in fact, back in the 1980s, there was a bumper sticker about the Dalai Lama, and the bumper sticker says, "My religion is kindness." Now, kindness is a much, much better word to use than um, the word metta in the sense of loving kindness, that you can be kind to people without getting gushy, that we can actually display kindness to people. That would be the difference between then with compassion is loving kindness as opposed to just plain old excellent form kindness. So as we practice friendship, this is actually the most important part of it, that we have to practice it in a friendly manner. Now, going back to the basics, who's the person that you need to practice on for kindness? Mikey, who's your number one person to practice kindness on?
This guy.
Right. This is something that we're learning about. That's what the Dhamma really is all about, is that come out of your own dukkha, come out of your own compassion, come out of your own pity party, and learn that everything is okay. Everything is fine. Now, yesterday we had a talk about, actually, I think that almost everybody that was on the call was voting for and rooting for the Democrats. And so there was a whole lot of sad faces worrying about, oh, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And the point about that is that you don't know what Donald Trump is going to do. First off, he's got a lot of opposition. Second off, he is known to lie. So why should you listen to his lies about one thing and say, oh, he's a liar, and listen to other lies he tells and freak out about it? Oh, he's going to deport every illegal citizen or every illegal immigrant in the United States. He couldn't possibly do that. In a way, he's being what we call grandiose or over the hill, making statements that he couldn't possibly do anything about. Well, since that talk yesterday, I've been back on YouTube, and wow, it has exploded on both sides. Everybody's freaking out. Oh, they want Biden to arrest Elon Musk. Oh, Elon Musk has been talking to Putin. Oh, well, we're going to put Trump in jail for 4 years. Oh, we want a recount. And so the Democrats are going all kinds of wild, trying to, let us say, absolve themselves of all of their bad feelings, when in fact they lost. Now, here's the point about that. If you identify with a political party, then all political parties go up and down and up and down. In fact, they're thinking that as they recount, the Democrats are going to win the House. We don't know. They haven't figured it out yet, but they're very optimistic about winning the House. But then if they don't, they're going to feel bad. Here's the point that I'm making now is that if you identify, I am a Democrat or I am a Republican, then that identification means that you have jumped into whatever sea that the Republicans are in. You've joined them in their misery. The same thing on the other side of the boat is that you've jumped into the sea of the Democrats. I am a Democrat. If you identify with either political party, but we can go one step further. We can do that at a national level. Oh, I am a Mexican. Oh, I am a Sri Lankan. Oh, I am a Dane. I'm a Great Dane. Oh, I am a poodle. Whatever you identify with, you're going to suffer because of that identification. This is what we mean by anatta. In fact, the important part of anatta is that everything is a moving target. Everything is a moving target. Don't identify with one or the other. Go ahead, Lars.
What about, like, say I'm a vegetarian versus I'm a cannibal?
Well, maybe you're not a cannibal. Maybe you're not a vegan or a vegetarian. That's a label that you're wearing. And by wearing that label, you're going to make a lot of enemies who don't like vegetarians.
Yeah, but what if I'm somewhere where there's cannibals and I say, well, I'm not a cannibal. I'm not going to eat this food. Like,
take me with you. I don't think that you can handle the cannibals quite the way that I would.
Well, what if I told them I don't agree with being a cannibal?
Well, I'm going to be soup. And in fact, the joke is that when this old body dies, please roll me up to the back door of a Chinese restaurant. They'll pay you $2 a pound. They're going to make soup, wonton soup.
But there was actually the story of this guy. He was with his kids and he landed his boat on an island in Hudson Bay. And his kids were out there picking berries or something, and he saw that there was a polar bear was stalking his kids. And it was too far to the boat to go get his gun, so he somehow warned his kids, and they started moving away. Then the bear charged, and he somehow threw some rocks at the bear, and he was killed, but his kids made it to the boat. So it's like he saved their life, but he didn't. It was either he didn't have a lifeline to throw he didn't have a way to do anything else.
I know that you're full of all kinds of stories, Lars. What I would invite you to do is stop telling yourself so many stories. A better way of looking at it, like that example of did everybody see that cartoon of is from the Far Side, where the doctors are standing around the bed of this guy in the hospital, and the doctors are all laughing and pointing fingers at the guy in the bed. And the caption is, their testing is laughter the best medicine. Now,
yeah, they don't make any money from that.
Well, it depends upon whether you identify as a doctor or you identify as the guy laying in the bed being laughed at. That's the whole point, is who do you identify with? And the answer is, anytime that you identify with one or the side or the other, you're bound to go into dissatisfaction. The better thing to do is to stand off and just see that as a joke, that you don't identify with the one in the bed. The same thing is true about any time that you feel that people are laughing at you. That's because you identify with it. Go ahead, Daytree.
So could you repeat the word again in, I think in sati or something that covers the thing that you label yourself or identify yourself so much? Like you just said it.
Anatta.
Anatta.
Yeah, the word is atta.
Atta.
Okay.
Anatta.
Now,
So is it actually that you don't take yourself too seriously and that you don't label yourself too much and don't just see yourself as all different kind of
Yeah. In fact, the
identification.
question would be, where is too much? Because the too much is always the dukkha. Catch yourself as you begin to identify with something and stop and say, wait a minute, that's not who I am. That's not me. I'm not the guy laying in the bed, and I'm not the guy who was the doctors pointing at the guy in the bed. I'm not that. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa actually has a very famous saying that's quite common around all of those who know Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. You could almost say that it's his motto. And that is that nothing is worth identifying as I, me, or mine. Nothing is worth clinging to as I, me, or mine. Nothing is worth it. Okay, so here's an example of that we've talked before about. One fortunate attachment would be to attach to right here, right now. You've heard me say that, right? Let's attach to right here, right now. And then somebody comes by and you start telling them some story and they say, well, why don't you be here now? And then they say, oh, no, I should have been right here, right now. That means that in that moment, they're now attaching to being right here, right now in a negative way. They're feeling bad because they're actually attaching too much. So you probably heard that the path of the Buddha is the middle path. Not too much, not too little. Okay. So going back to that photo, that joke from the far side, if you identify with the doctors laughing at the patient, that's one extreme. If you're the patient laying in bed and not liking getting laughed at, that's the other extreme. The middle path is not identifying with either side. Now, that's true about politics. Don't identify as a Democrat and you won't hurt like a Democrat. Don't identify as a Republican and you won't hurt like a Republican. Don't identify as a poodle and you won't hurt like a poodle. Don't identify as a Great Dane and you won't hurt like a Great Dane. Or a Frenchman, or whatever you're attaching to. Stop attaching so strongly.
So don't vote.
Go ahead.
So don't vote. Don't go vote. Don't vote on any party. What do you think?
If you go vote, that means you want something, which means you're setting yourself for a disappointment if your vote don't count or if your vote didn't get what you wanted. That you could go so far as to say, in fact, I'm pretty sure of it, that when the Thai monks are Thai monks, they do have an option of whether they're going to vote or not, but generally the monks don't vote in Thai elections. We're becoming above politics. We don't need to vote. That voting is, in fact, stating who I identify with. All right. Now, with 30 million, let us say, what, 80 million, 90 million people voting on one side and 75 or 100 million people voting on the other, what good is your vote? Voting actually is an admission that I'm worthless. Another way of saying it is that I'm worth so much that my vote, my vote is so valuable, it's not worth it giving to either one of those parties. They're all a bunch of crooks. Anna, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I realized that like everybody makes such a big deal about voting and it's okay, but politics go beyond just the data of voting, right? Like it's about organizing to make stuff happen, and that can happen without any of these parties. Actually, like if people want to do something, they can organize in some ways to do something else. Like I see I see that it's been put as this big pressure to vote, but really there's many options if people want to organize. And that's all I wanted to say. Like Indians used to organize their societies without parties or anything. So we just become less creative in thinking about politics too.
Right. Okay. Perhaps the word that we can use that will give something to this is the word tribalism. That tribalism is that this is my tribe. These people believe what I believe, and in many cases they dress the way that I dress and think the way that I think, and they vote the way that I vote, which means that I'm part of that. I'm in that tribe, which means that I'm subtly against the other tribes. This is what we call racism, by the way. Racism and being against immigration is nothing more than a form of tribalism. And so who do you want in your tribe? And the question, and the real answer to that is, I would rather have a special little tribe called the Noble Bhikkhu Sangha, which doesn't identify with any of the other tribes because we don't identify with much of anything. This kind of tribe is not really a tribe other than the fact that we're like-minded. And that is that we don't take sides. That's kind of the middle path. Don't take any sides at all, but have friends who also don't take sides. Look how many barroom brawls have happened because one person took one team and it's my team, and the other person takes the other team. That in fact, for years in Europe, they would have riots at the soccer games. Why would be that? It's because they identified with a particular team. Now, one of the stories that I would tell about that is in the sense of what is right and what is wrong, or which team are you on, is imagine that they're out there playing some game, football or baseball or soccer, whatever that they're playing, and a penalty goes down. And half the stands up and boos, and the other side of the stadium, half the stands up and cheers. Which was right? The answer to that is that what's right is irrelevant. If the question instead is, what side are you on? And if you don't take a side, then it doesn't matter a flip to you whether that was a good call or a bad call on that referee throwing a flag. That in fact, one of the things that's really interesting about people who are really interested in the teaching of the Dhamma is they become kind of disinterested in sports because there's nothing really much to it anyway. And we become kind of disinterested in politics because there's not much of anything to it anyway. It's all, in fact, manufactured. And guess who the manufacturers are in chief? Is media. This is one of the points that we covered yesterday, is that the media wants to stay media. They want you to listen to them today, but they want you to listen to them tomorrow. And they want you to continue to listen to them. And the way that the media operates is basically in fear. If they can get you afraid, then you'll go back and get the second part of it. In the 1930s and 40s, they had movies that had serial endings. The Perils of Pauline was one of them, and Zorro was another one. and they would end the movie right at the point where Pauline was going to get run over by the railroad or something. And then you had to go back to the movie next week to see that just in the nick of the time, somebody saved her. And then the rest of this story today is setting up her next peril. And then they want you to come back next week to watch how she got out of it. Isn't that, in fact, what the whole game of politics is all about, is setting up some disaster and keeping you interested in one disaster after another disaster after another disaster? And when you can see that they're setting you up for it and that you're not buying that trip anymore, you become kind of disinterested, just like in professional sports. There's nothing to it. Doesn't matter what game was won by what team. Thomas, go ahead. You got your hand up.
Yeah, just obviously in Europe, we have a relatively recent history of, autocratic governments getting to power, right? So there, it's not just a case of perhaps two sports teams playing against each other and they're all the same. I mean, it can be that in history you have movements that come to power that are more, spewing more perhaps hatred than others.
I don't think there's ever been a real benign government. I don't think that a benign government exists. They're just all different kinds and forms of evil.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm not too politically engaged, but it does feel like some of them are more, inciting hatred than others. It doesn't feel like they're all exactly the same. And so just my question is, you have that saying, I forget it exactly, but it's more or less if all that needs to happen for evil to prevail is that good people do nothing, right? That
actually, there's no such thing as good people, and there's no such thing as evil people. What you have on one side is people who are greedy, who are harmful, who are hurting other people. They're not evil, they're just greedy. The Buddha doesn't mention anything about good and evil in the Second Noble Truth. He talks about greed and ill will and ignorance. And so on the other side of the fence, you'll have all of these people who are calling themselves good, pointing fingers at the evil, saying, oh, you're bad. But in fact, I would say that 2/3 of the stuff about how bad Putin is a bunch of lies. How bad Donald Trump really is a pack of lies. People hate him, and they'll make up stuff to prove how bad they hate him, where in fact we really don't know what the future is going to be. And right now it looks like that Putin himself is in one hell of a mess, one that he manufactured for himself. Amrit, good to see you. Ivan, you got your hand in the air.
Yeah, I'm curious about something. What if there's two parties and there's a very clear evidence of one particular party is causing a lot of misinformation, it's factually can be.
Well, that just means that you're standing on the other side looking at that tribe and say that tribe is having a lot of disinformation. But if you go around the fence and go over to the other side and start listening to the other side, you'll start hearing all of the disinformation that they're putting out too. Now, here's the way to handle that. Let those two groups, let us say you're in Malaysia, let's say that that's all in Kuala Lumpur, to where half the people in Kuala Lumpur are saying the other half is bad. But you're sitting on a mountain way up in the hills in Malaysia, 100 kilometers from Kuala Lumpur, and you're not listening to anything they have to say.
Mhm.
Okay? That's the way to do it. Don't pay attention to the politics. Don't pay attention to what's happening out there. The question is can you clean that stuff out between your ears and be happy right now? Just because those two groups of tribal political parties are yelling at each other doesn't mean that you have to feel bad for one side or for the other. You could just forget all about it because you're safe, you're secure, you're sitting on the mountaintop 100 kilometers away.
Yeah,
But if you go down to the town, you start listening to the both sides of it, you'll start having those kind of feelings. This is another way that we talk about in the sense of getting into seclusion. Get away from it all. Don't listen to all of that crap. Stay away from the media. Don't watch MSNBC. Don't watch Fox News. Don't watch CNN. Don't watch French television. Don't watch the news broadcast. Don't read those newspapers, especially the headlines. You might want to go to the part of the newspaper that's called the obituaries. You can feel good because everybody that you read about there is dead and you're still alive. That's one good tribe to be in.
Yeah, I was just thinking like because Thich Nhat Hanh is someone that I thought of, like he kind of is one of those person that really practice the Dharma but still get involved in activism, but he doesn't particularly pick any side. He's someone that I think the intention is like I said, loving kindness, and he doesn't pick any side. So
That's what I'm inviting you to do. In fact, I've got no beef at all with Thich Nhat Hanh. As far as I'm concerned, he's in our tribe. He's in the noble tribe.
Yeah. So I was thinking like for someone, if someone has to, I mean, I feel like there's a possibility of staying informed without getting like I'm you know, like I'm this tribe, I'm that tribe, right? Like there's no harm to stay informed as long as one is mindful. I don't know.
Right? That's a slippery slope now, isn't it? That's what I'm warning you about. If you stay away from it, you're safe. If you start dabbling in it and start saying, oh, just a little bit, oh, just a little bit more, oh, I want Kamala Harris to win, but only a little bit, that means that when she loses, you're going to feel bad, even just a little bit. The whole point about the middle path is to stay away from the extremes, not lending toward one side and the other and somewhere close to the middle. Let's stay at 50%. Let's not go to the 60%. So that you're 60% for one group and 40% for the other. This is, in fact, what Thich Nhat Hanh is kind of subtle with it, but he's sending a message to all of those people that follow him to stay out mentally. Don't get involved with all of that stuff. You're much better off by not having any involvement. Dietrich, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm so into your story, I almost forgot. So what I would like to say to Lars, I think, it's really like if you wanna look at this or investigate it, be a very good observer. It's not what people say, it's what they do what matters.
Okay.
But then you have to be sure about the information of what they do. So that's also a really tricky part of it. And
That's an important point. Let
yeah,
me finish that off by saying thank you for bringing it up, because that's basically the Eightfold Noble Path, is to look. Now, the important point is when you look, and maybe look again and maybe look a third time, still don't draw a conclusion, just to continue to look, investigate. Because if you draw a conclusion, you look and you look and you look and you look and you say, oh, Kamala Harris is the right way to go. Then when Donald Trump wins, you feel bad. Okay. But if you'd been watching other news, you would have said, yay, Donald Trump, and start listening to that side of the story. So it depends upon which side of the story you listen to and look at. And so maybe the better thing to do in that regard is to look at your curiosity, to look at why you want to have an outcome. Look at why you're doing this, because you're setting yourself up for feeling bad. And the better way to handle it is by staying out of it. Staying out of that with compassion. That compassion is really what we're talking about here, is don't have compassion for the Democrats. Don't have compassion for the French. Don't have compassion for the Putins. Don't have compassion for the Great Danes. Don't have compassion. Keep looking. Keep looking. In fact, the right way to handle this, keep looking for lifelines that you can throw people to help them come out of their own political shenanigans. That's the right way to handle it, is to come out of that. So go ahead, Deidre, you had a second point.
Yeah, very interesting. So the other thing I was saying is what you believe matters. So
It sure does.
Yeah.
You know what another word for what you believe is? Conclusions.
Mm.
Another word for it is concepts. The point is that I'm making here is that don't cling to any concepts. Don't cling to any conclusions. Don't believe in belief. That happened a lot when I was in North Carolina. I would run across Christians on a regular basis, and they would invariably ask, well, what do you believe? Hot dog, I've got them now. And the answer to that is, I don't believe in belief. I believe in investigation, and then more investigation. And when I've had enough investigation and come to start believing something that I've investigated, now I'm setting myself up for dukkha again. So don't believe anything. Don't believe it. Don't buy the story.
Just practice the Dhamma.
Just practice the Dhamma. And what is practicing the Dhamma? Is looking and making a change. Remembering to look and to make a change. Of what is that change? Throw out your beliefs. Don't believe in anything. If you believe that you're the patient laying in that bed and the doctors are laughing at you, you're setting yourself up for pain. Oh, they're laughing at me. Better just to see it as a cartoon, and you're not a doctor and you're not the patient. You're just looking at the joke about laughter being the best medicine. And if you can laugh, guess what? You just took the medicine.
Yeah, but some people don't find certain things that aren't funny. Like people have a different sense of humor. Like,
yeah,
Well,
sure. Different kind of humor. Yeah.
right. Let's develop a sense of humor, which would be different than a sense of belief. That in fact, belief is almost always too serious. Look how religious people get too serious about what they believe. And it's all just a joke anyway. Why can't we just laugh? In fact, I've got a really funny one, but it's nasty. You want to hear it? All right, here I am. and one, and one, and one. I can see your house from here. I don't know if anybody got that joke. I think a few did. Thomas, I was praying, pretending to be Jesus on the cross. Antoine, Antoine, I can see your house from here. Let's not make a heavy duty out of it. Let's keep things light. Because you can't do anything about it anyway, other than just make a joke out of it. Ivan, you've got your hand in the air.
Yeah, Dhammarato, I have a quick question. So, belief, something very interesting is it usually feels very passionate, right? Like it's like excitement, anyway, I'm not so. I feel like neutral feeling is really nice because like when you don't believe in anything, right? You choose to just observing. You don't take any side. Even like you said, being a moving target, it feels really easy to practice the Dharma because I don't know, it feels nice to not take things personally. But I'm curious about because you always ask us to gladden the mind, to have wholesome thoughts, piti and sukha. Like, it feels like there's a different type of excitement. There's a kind of excitement that's really good, that helps in the practice. And there's a type of excitement, like you said, the belief in something, like religious belief or whatever, it creates dukkha. I guess to summarize my question is like, is it better to always have neutral feeling? It's like if I'm excited, it's better to pull it back to keep it neutral.
Yes, and let's go so far as to say that that's advanced Buddhism. That's step 2. Step 1 is to brighten, to gladden the mind, to always look on the bright side of life, to have a good sense of humor, and lighten up. Well, if you continue to lighten up, dropping your burdens, and lighten up anymore, there's not much of anything left, is there?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So that takes us then to the teaching of the Buddha about sunyata, that things are in fact empty. There's not much of anything there. Whoa, what a relief it is. I don't even have to laugh at it anymore.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. There's nothing to it. And yet our whole lives and our whole culture has been spending all of this time trying to make meaning. Oh, it means something if Trump is elected. Oh, it means something if Jesus was on the cross. Oh, it means something if Muhammad took a horse to heaven. And guess what? All of those are just stories. They don't mean anything. What is really, really meaningful is that nothing matters. You've heard the statement, mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. And if you listen to all of those people who are saying things matter, you're going to buy their trip. Better not to listen to them. Let's either do one of two things. Let's go to seclusion and not listen to any of that stuff. Or the second possibility is go to those who are in seclusion and be in seclusion with them. That's the noble Sangha. That's what we're developing here, a whole group of people that have the attitude that it don't matter.
That's an ascetic practice, really.
Go ahead, Lars. You got your hand up.
Seclusion is kind of like asceticism, like put up. I had 2 other things I was going to say was Thich Nhat Hanh was apparently considered anti-war. He was against the war.
Well, I'm anti-war. Have you ever heard me promote war? I just don't make a point of it. Wow, my goodness, there's nothing to war anyway. Just a couple of people who can't agree on the fact that they're in the same tribe with each other. And what is that tribe? The tribe of I'm afraid of you.
Well, if you're anti-war, people will see that they'll put you in a box and say, "Well, you're anti-war. I'm not with you," or something. But anyways,
I'm not in a box with anti-war. I just don't war.
Well, they'll say you're in that tribe. Then I don't know. But,
well, that's what they say. That's what they're saying. They're trying to pigeonhole you. They're trying to put you in a tribe. And the best tribe to be in is either no tribe at all or in the tribe of nobles.
The other thing you were saying about is to look, and it sounded like look at, well, what is the truth?
No, you're not going to find the truth. The Buddha was not really big on truth. Truth is just a concept. What he was actually referring to more correctly would be what's real. And guess what?
So,
real is a moving target. The only real truth is the Four Noble Truths, because they've always been there. Dissatisfaction is caused by greed, ill will, and delusion. And you don't have to suffer if you can see your second noble truth and get out of it. And there's a method to do that. That's been true from the time of the Buddha, but it was true before that, and it's true now. But that's not much truth. Truth is tiny.
Well, is there such a thing
really tiny?
Is there such a thing as propaganda?
Well, propaganda is pretty big. People are propping up propaganda left, right, and center. There's all kinds of propaganda, but there's very little truth. Very little of it. Amrit, go ahead. You got your hand up.
Yeah, Dhammarato, you kind of several times talk about the thoughts, that the thoughts are not really original, almost all of them. So they are repeated, and many of them you are getting from your friends and from your society, from the newspaper. I would say the same would be
from Uncle George, from all kinds of places, and many of our thoughts are actually quite old.
Yeah,
you picked them up as a child.
I would guess same apply for beliefs as well, right? So you have a belief that Trump is a bad. I would guess beliefs are also thoughts. So
you know the difference between belief and thought? Here's a good one for you. What's the difference between belief and thought?
So beliefs has kind of a truth value associated. Is it right or wrong?
Let us say it this way. A thought is just a thought, but the same thought twice is now a belief. And if you repeat it a third time, it's even a deeper belief. And you say it over and over and over again, and now it's a real belief, really stuck in there. Anna, you got your hand up.
Yeah, the way I'm understanding this is that, for example, if I worry too much about voting or not voting or whatever, that's just a belief. And it's better to investigate right now, and the wisdom comes by investigating, right? So it doesn't matter.
Investigating what? Not investigating MSNBC, not investigating the media, but investigating the thoughts between your ears. That's what we're going to investigate.
Yeah.
It's not investigating the world, because you get. I have a story about that if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
All right. This comes from Uncle Remus Tales, which is, let us say, it comes from the 1830s, the 1840s, and it's almost banned because of it being racist. But Uncle Remus was an old black man who had a bunch of white children sitting around, and he'd tell them stories. And he'd tell them stories about Brer Fox, Brer Bear, and Brer Rabbit. And one of the stories he told is that Brer Rabbit was walking down the street. In fact, Brer Bear and Brer Fox were kind of the villains in this thing, and they were always trying to catch the rabbit for dinner, I suppose. And so they found a bunch of tar somehow, and they take this tar and make a baby out of it, a tar baby. That's where the racism comes in, a black baby. Okay. And so they set this tar baby aside of the road, and Brer Rabbit comes by and says, "How's y'all?" And the baby doesn't say anything. And Brer Rabbit says, "I said, how's y'all? How's y'all doing?" And he didn't say anything. And so the rabbit got kind of angry, went up and says, "Why don't y'all talk to me?" And the baby didn't say anything, and so the rabbit got so unhappy and angry that he hit the baby. And when he hit the baby, his paw got stuck deep into the tar of the baby. And so he hit the baby again, and he got both fists stuck in the tar baby. And so he kicked the tar baby, and then he kicked him again, and now Brer Rabbit is completely caught in the tar. Okay, and now Brer Fox and Brer Bear come by and catch him. This is actually the story then is that he says, "Y'all can do anything to me that you want to, but don't throw me in that briar patch. Y'all can cook me, you can boil me in oil, you can boil me in water, you can strip me down, but don't throw me in that briar patch." And you know what they did? They threw him in the briar patch. And he said itch and ouch for a little while, and then he started laughing because the briar patch is his home.
That's called reverse psychology.
And so the reason that I'm telling you that story is because we get stuck into anything that we care about. So don't care about anything. Don't get stuck into it. This is the story of Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox. This is a really excellent story, is to remember to don't get involved. Stay out of it. If you punch the Republican Party, you're going to get your foot caught in it.
Yeah, I relate this to the compassion word because sometimes I feel like compassion becomes a burden on me to be compassionate, like when I really don't know what's the best choice, for example. So I want to be compassionate, right? But we already said that this word is not exactly what could be beneficial. So
all right, well, let's continue on with that particular story. We're about to run out of time here, and so I promised you all 4 of the Brahma Viharas. The third one on the list is called mudita. Now, there's 2 kinds of mudita. It goes in both directions, and what mudita actually means is sympathetic vibration. Just like you can put a violin in a room and then a trumpet player comes in and he plays the note A and leaves the room, somebody else can go in that room and they can hear that violin still playing that note A. All right, that's the same thing as the Brer Rabbit getting stuck in the tar baby. It's sympathetic vibrations, and sympathetic vibrations go both directions. They go in both directions. So if someone is angry, they want everybody to be angry. They'll go so far as to tell lies about how bad the bank is to get you to be angry at the bank. So the first story would be then is that you're in competition with this guy that you work with over the job. Your boss got promoted, and he's going to promote one of the 2 of you to the new job of being the boss. If the other guy wins and you loses, what are you going to do? You're going to feel jealous? Or can you feel the joy that he has? That in fact, probably the best thing to do is to invite him to lunch, take the whole crowd, and become your new boss's best friend. If you get jealous, your jealousy will show, and he will not be good friends with you. So this is sympathetic vibration. Can you vibrate with somebody else's joy rather than being selfish and vibrating the way that you feel bad? Okay, so let's turn that around. And in the sense that if you won that job, your job now is to pull that other guy out of his jealousy and make him your best friend. Here is where now is the connection with karuna, or as we're saying, compassion. If you find somebody that's in a state of misery, your job is to help them come out of their misery, and the best way to do that is give them a better vibration, the vibration of joy. So you're around somebody who's miserable, can you cheer them up? This is what mudita really is that can you have that joy? Now, the way that I would talk about it is this kind of joy doesn't get delivered with a teaspoon. You need a shovel, a steam shovel. Why? Because you can dump a whole lot of joy on them and it's not going to take. You need even more joy than that. So that means you have to have a great reserve of joy. Where do you develop that great reserve of joy? By practicing alone in your own mind and getting your act together so that you've got enough joy so that you can spread it around. Okay? So that's the mudita. The last one is upekkha. And upekkha, by the way, is very similar in the regard of balance, of over the hill, of emptiness, of sunyata. And Achan Tanisaro, Achan Jeff, has the story about that the doctor is all compassionate and everything like that, and he heals people left, right, and center. But after he heals somebody, they die. And in fact, that will happen to every medical doctor. The only possibility is that he saved someone to live is because he died first. But if he stays alive, every patient that he has is going to die on him. Wow, think about it like that. Everybody dies. Okay. If the doctor don't like people dying on him, he will have what is called burnout. Now look at the kinds of professions we have that are full of burnout. Politicians get burned out. They stop running for office. Police get burned out. Social workers are very famous for getting burned out. Teachers get burned out. All kinds of professions get burned out. Why? Because their profession, their job is to go out and do good, and it falls to crap. So, upekkha means that you deliver as much sugar, as much joy as you can, knowing that it might not work. Or you can get them happy for a little while, and then they'll have another thought, and now they're back into it again. Never mind, start again. Never mind, more sugar. Never mind, let's keep at it with our good feelings and our joy and our happiness, even if you can't convince someone that it's okay for them to be happy around you. So that's the final one. This is what makes it a Brahma Vihara is that ultimately it doesn't matter. Ultimately, your mind over your own matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter, even if you can't save someone from their own misery. In fact, yesterday, I'm not sure that I saved all of those folks from misery. As soon as I turn this video off, they're back into, oh, Trump! Because they don't remember what I said. They would rather feel bad. So this is the way that those 4 Brahma Viharas work, is we start with kindness. We start with friendliness. When someone is in a bad mood, we're going to use the combination of karuna and mudita to bring them out of it. And we're left with upekkha when we can't. It's still okay. By the way, the word Brahma Vihara, you being in Sri Lanka, you already know where the Vihara is coming from. What does the word Vihara mean, Anne?
Nunnery? No, I really don't know.
Okay, the word V is the same word as Vipassana, and Hara is exactly the same thing as the word heart. But in fact, Hara is used in the Indo-European languages in many countries, including Hindi, Gujarati, Indian language, have Hara, the heart. Vihara is in the heart, at home. Okay, and
I love that.
Brahma is the highest. So be in the highest home. What is that? Upekkha, mudita, karuna, and metta.
Wow.
But you have to develop that. This is not something that comes. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that mudita, metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha are the outcome of correct practice. They are not correct practice in and of themselves. The correct practice is to look at what you're doing, look at what you're thinking, and making a change. That's the practice. And if you get good at that, then when somebody comes all teary-eyed to you, you can smile back at them. And they continue teary-eyed, and you can continue to smile. You probably will pull them out, but you might not be able to. Can you keep your smile? Okay, so that's the story. Dietrich, did we cover compassion for you?
Yes, you did. You did fully. I really like the word Kanara.
Karuna.
Karuna, sorry. Yeah.
I had friends in India, one of whom's name was Karuna.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
I had another friend, her name was Shraddha or Sada.
I
So
have a
there's,
friend whose
go
name
ahead.
is Joy. I have a friend whose name is Joy.
Joy, yes. May she live up to that name.
She does. Yeah.
So does anybody have any last statements? Amit, do you have something last to say?
Nothing much. Everything is good. I am
Everything?
vibrating.
All right. How about you, Ivan? Any last remarks?
Yeah, it's very interesting, Dhammarato, because it's just that meaning, right? Like you can have 2 person and 1 person say life has no meaning, and then they can look very sad and disappointed and anguish, and the other person can say life has no meaning, and then they can feel very happy and joyful. No, it's just everything you said kind of just made me think about that. That's all.
Mm-hmm. So really the underlying point is not that everything is meaningless, because one can see things as meaningless and be overjoyed with it, and the other one is seeing everything as meaningless and he wants something to mean something. And so he's the one that's disappointed because he still wants something. Second Noble Truth stuff there.
Mm.
Well, it depends on what you mean, but I try not to be too mean.
That has no meaning. Patrick, do you have any last things to say?
All good.
Well, it's all good enough. How about you, Thomas? Any last remarks?
No, thank you very much for teaching. Lots to. I've taken a lot away as usual. Thank you.
All right, Christopher, how about you?
No, it's good to see you though, Dhammarato. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Mikey, why don't you take this thing home?
Yeah, thank you, friends, for being here today. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, leave a comment and a like. It really helps the YouTube channel out.
Yes, it would be really great if you guys start commenting on it. Thumbs ups and thumbs downs, and Dhammarato is full of rato, and that kind of stuff is good. Let's have some comments. That would be good.
It's all welcome. And yeah, go ahead and sign up for the Open Sangha Foundation website, opensanghafoundation.org. We've been getting more and more signups every day, and the site's been growing, and we have more people assisting with it now. So if you'd like to volunteer, you can reach out to me as well in order to do that. And we also have, of course, the Sangha UK and Sangha US Skype groups that you can join. And we have a new Skype group called One-on-One Dhamma Calls. If you'd like to schedule a call with a seasoned practitioner, we even have some bhikkhus in that group as well.
Yeah, someone with pepper.
So yeah, there's, people talk about these political echo chambers, and instead we're inviting you to join a wholesome echo chamber where we repeat wholesome thoughts to one another and encourage the Buddha Dhamma practice. So yeah, take care, everyone.
Thank you so much. All right. We'll see
Thank you,
everybody
everyone.
next time. Thank you for coming. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining.
Thank you,
Thank
Mikey.
you.
Thank you, Dhammarato.
Thanks.
Don't worry. Be happy.
Bye.